Hello all, welcome back to Tech Capture. So in this video we are going to see how we can deploy Python Django application on a Google Cloud App Engine. So we'll create our Python Django application first, we'll test it locally and we'll deploy it on Google App Engine. And for a database we'll use MySQL version of Cloud SQL. So basically we'll use Python Django, we'll use Google App Engine, and for database we'll use a MySQL and we'll use a Google Managed Cloud SQL instance. Okay, so before jumping into the exact project, so let's see what we are going to cover in this video. So first we'll create a Django note application. So we'll creating one sample application which will be kind of a notepad. We would create some notes, we could save our notes, then we can go back and read our notes what we have said. So that is kind of sample application we are creating using a Python Django. Then we'll test that app locally if it is running fine. Okay, if it is working fine, then we'll deploy it on Google App Engine. Now while deploying on a Google App Engine, we'll face some issues, we'll sort that. So purposefully I am not solving that issue beforehand. I'll be covering everything in this video. I will face that issue, I will reproduce that issue, and I will show you why we are facing that issue and how we can resolve that issue. Because whenever I am doing it for first time, I face some issues, and I definitely know that even if you are trying for first time, you will face that issue. So directly giving you the ready-made code, I will reproduce that issue, why we are facing that issue, and we'll cover that how to resolve that issue, and then we'll move ahead. Now when using Google App Engine, we need additional database, so we'll using the MySQL version of Cloud SQL. We'll create Cloud SQL database instance and we'll create our Django application on App Engine to the Cloud SQL. So we'll see that how we can do that. And then not only we are deploying on Google App Engine, we'll create one custom domain for our application, and then we'll access it on internet, so anyone can access on internet. So end to end, from creating simple Django application till deploying and then making it available for the users using the custom domain name, all the process and all the steps we are going to cover in this video. So this video could be a bit longer, so just stay tuned till the end and you will learn a lot of things in case of like a real project scenario. So I definitely guarantee you that you will learn a lot of things from this video. So just stay tuned till the end and just let me know if you stuck somewhere, just let me know in comment section. Okay, so let's get started. So deploying Python Django application on App Engine is not as straightforward as Python Flask application. So there are certain things we have to follow, there are certain process we have to follow here. So to make it easier, I created a GitHub readme file with all these steps and the sequence we have to follow. So you can refer this GitHub readme file while starting. So I'll be following these complete steps from here, and then I will create first Django application in my local, I will execute in my local, and then I will deploy it on Google App Engine, and whatever the required steps I have documented here. So using this we'll follow our project. So going forward, we'll follow all the steps from this readme file to complete our project. So I'll request you also follow the steps which are mentioned here sequentially, so you will not face any issues. Okay, so what I will do, okay, let me first now stop video because it's not required, I feel, and we'll focus more on our Python Django application. Okay, so first I will create one project in my D drive. So okay, so here I will just open cmd. Okay, so just type cmd here. Okay, and it will open me a command prompt. Okay, so I will create a Django project. First, to create a Django project, you have to execute a command. So before that we have to install Django. So I have mentioned all the things step by step here, so you should be having a Python installed in your system. So let me show you how to check if Python is installed. Okay, so Python 3.8 is installed in my system. Now we have to install the Django. So it is already installed in my system, so let's just execute it command. Okay, so we have to install Django first, that is one of the dependencies. So you can see it's already satisfied, it means it's already installed in my system. So I will go to the next set of command. So this is the first command to create Django project. Okay, so Django admin start project notes project. So we'll be creating the notes project here, that we can create some notes and save that notes and then go back and validate our notes. So I'll create start project and notes project. So it will create one folder for me naming notes underscore project, and it will create some files within that folders. So I executed it. Okay, now let me just minimize this and let me see. So it created a notes project. I'll open it, and within this project now I will open my VS Code. So how you can directly open VS Code? So just go to the notes project. Okay, and I will just type code space dot. So I have VS Code installed in my system, so it will automatically open VS Code within that folder. Now as soon as I created the Django project, it creates some files for me. Okay, so it created files for me. So you can see it created manage.py, that is in my root directory. That is a main file which is required for a Django application, and within this folder it created some setting.py, urls.py, wsgi.py. so there are different files available in Django. So I'm not going in detail explaining how Django works and not going in depth for the Python. So our aim for this project is how to deploy Django application on a Google App Engine. So I'll be focusing more on that part. So if you want to know more about Django, you can follow the separate courses are there or separate YouTube videos which specifically focus on developing a Django application and what is the significance of each of these files in Django. So we are covering the files which are required for our application to be deployed on a Google App Engine. Okay, but specifically I'm not going and explaining how each of these file will work along with Django, so that I'm not covering in this video. So specifically I will cover how we can deploy our Django application, how we can create our Django application, and how we can map it to the custom domain and access on the internet. Okay, so now we created our simple application. So now go to terminal, how to execute this application or how to run this application. Now it is created very simple application, but we can test it if it is working file. So how to run this application? So we have command here to run python manage.py run server. So always remember you have to execute this from your root directory where your manage.py is available. So we have manage.py here, python manage.py and run server. This is the command we have to execute while executing our or running our Django server. So let me execute and it will run our Django server. Now this is a dummy page I will show you. This is like home page for Django. Okay, and you can see the install worked successfully, congratulations. So this is like kind of default page for Django like we have for Apache. So this is a dummy page, or I would say the default page for Django. Now this is a Django page. Now we have to create our own application. So to create our application we have to create app first with Django. So let me just close it and I will follow the next step. So till now we created only Django project. Okay, and we executed. Now we have to create a note app. So here step 2, how to create a note app. So here we have to execute this command, python manage.py start app notes. So this is your name of the app. So I'll just copy it and you can execute here as well. Okay, so I'll just execute here, and now you can see the left side there is no notes project, a notes folder, but as soon as you create app it will create one more folder here with the name notes. So just pay attention in the left panel. Okay, now it created a notes folder, and within this folder also there are some files available like admin.py, apps.py, models.py, views.py. Okay, so now we created our app, but we have to develop our app so that we can create a notes. Now this is kind of blank app only we created. Now we have to add a logic to it, we have to add a database to it. So how we can do that? Let's follow the next step. So I'll show you. So first, steps 3, now we have to add this in your installed app. Okay, so we have to go in notes project setting.py. so whenever we are creating new apps, that we have to register in setting.py, that this is a part of this project. Okay, so we created a notes app that we have to register within settings.py installed app. If you go to setting.py, so this is already pre-filled file, we have to just add our newly created app. just add notes, okay, and give comma and just save this file. So we are not doing anything else, we are just whatever the apps we are creating, we are just registering it within the installed app. Okay, that is the first thing we have to know. Now, so whenever we are creating the nodes, we are giving some text data, and that text data has to be stored somewhere. So Django has their own database kind of functioning, and that database tables we create in models.py files. Okay, so in notes.py we have models.py. so currently there are no models. So in Django, models is nothing but you can refer to database tables. So to create the nodes, we have to create some database tables, and that is a models. So how we can create that? So here we have option here to create models. Okay, so I will just create node class here, that is Django model. What it is doing, so it is creating new table. First is character field, one other is text field. So this is for title, what is the heading of your title, and this is the content of your notes. So if it is like I am giving the personal notes, I am giving official notes, so first we give the title and then we'll give the content of our notes, and then it is having metadata field based on the date time field which is created at what time the note is created. Okay, so this is our model table we are creating. So simple notes application we are going to create, and to save the content of the note we are creating models, that nothing but a database tables. And Django have their own a SQLite database. You can see the left side, it is created db.sqlite3. so while running local we can use this SQLite, but while deploying on a managed service we have to connect to external database. So here we'll just use this SQLite to test our application locally. Okay, so now we created this table, but how to create this table? Now we only define this table, but we have to create that table. Okay, how we can do that? So simply we have command. First is make migration, python manage.py make migration. So what is this make migration? It means it will execute the table creation from the models.py and some default inbuilt tables. Okay, so once I execute, you can see create model note. So this is our note model. It will create this note table with 3 columns. First is title, content, and created at. Okay, and now this is a make migration. It is just show what will happen after we migrate it. And after the make migration, now I will execute migrate. So that is actually creating the table. Okay, so it first will create some default table, and at the last it will create the notes table. Okay, so now it created the notes table. Now seems the tables created, but now there should be some logic, like how we can add the notes, how we can create the notes, how we can delete the notes. So that logic has to be in the views.py file. So in Django we can create like database tables in models.py. We can create our all logic in views.py. Okay, and in admin there are admin settings. So now to create note views, so I'll just copy the code here which I already created. So as I said, I am not walking you through all the line of the code here. I'll just give the overview. Okay, so this is our views.py, and it is having all the functions required for our application. So first function is note list. What this function will do, it will execute this function and display the list of notes available. So suppose there are 10 lists at the home page, it will show all the 10 notes. Second function is note details. This will show what is there written in the notes. So whenever we open the notes, it will show note detail. And third is create note. So whenever we are creating new note, it will execute this function. Okay, so there are 3 functions basically. First is showing the note list on the home page, then if we click on the note, it will execute this note detail and display the note detail. And third is note create. So whenever we want to create new note, it will create a note for us, and these are having some HTML files. So note list HTML, note detail HTML, and at the end we have note form, which is a create note. So here it is giving error because we don't have any form here. So we have to create one file, form.py, and we have to add a form here. So create form. So this is our form. This is kind of HTML form, but in this form there are only 2 fields. Okay, so whenever we fill data to this form, it will get saved into node table. So this form is nothing but like inserting data. This is used to insert your data into table. The table which we created is a node. Okay, so the field are title and content, and created timestamp. It will take the date timestamp, that current date timestamp at which the node is created. Okay, so this is our forms.py. So now we have forms. So our views, once it should this error should go now. Where is our forms.py? We just created forms.py. Yeah, okay, there is a spelling mistake I made. It's from, not from, it is forms. That is why error is still there. Okay, now once I save it, this error should gone. Okay, so error is gone now. Let me save it. Now we created forms, we created views. So if you are new to Django, this might feel complex to you. Hope I understand that you have some background how Django works, and that Django application you want to deploy on a Google App Engine. Now we'll create a URL. So what URLs means? So whenever we are accessing it on, suppose now we are accessing here. So here we are directly accessing slash. So this is our URL, like home URL. So suppose we are adding something like home, we are adding something like notes. So what should be displayed on that particular URL, that we mentioned in the URL file. So we have URL files here. So this is our project URL, but we have to create one URL within our application as well. So I will create urls.py. So okay, so that has to be in notes. Let me delete it. So we have to create one urls.py within your application, notes application, and this should be added here. Okay, so include your notes URLs in the project URLs. Okay, so we have to add notes URL into a project URLs. So that should be a part of project URLs. So let me just add this part here. Okay, but what should be within the notes URL? So that already we have in our readme file, that this part should be in the notes URL. Okay, so let's go here and paste it in notes URL. I'll explain you what it means. So let me explain you what it is. So whenever I am going on the my home URL, it should display note list. Okay, when I am going on the int-pk, it is means like primary key of this node. So each node have their node ID. If I go on that node ID, it should display me the node detail. Okay, and when I create a new node, it should open /new, and it will execute node underscore create function. So what is node underscore create? That will go to your views.py. So this is node.create, and it will display you node form HTML. If you go on note list, it will execute note list function. What is note list function? So in note list function, it will return a note list HTML. Okay, so all these details are here, how the logic is working. So I am just filling all the files, so it is self-explanatory. Okay, so now our URL is done. Now what we are missing? So we need a template. We need a template.html. So let's create new folder, templates.html. I mean in templates we'll have our folders. So now we have to create a template. So within a directory notes, we have to create templates folder. Within that we have to create notes folder. Okay, so within the templates we have notes dot note underscore list.html, note detail html, and note form html. So let's create a notes folder within the templates. Okay, and within notes let's create 3 html file. So first is note underscore list dot html, second is note underscore details dot html. Okay, and what is the third one? Note underscore form. Okay, note detail, note list, and note underscore form. So let me create note underscore form dot html. So we have created 3 files, and let's put content of each file. So this is for note list. I will explain you what each of this html is doing. This is note detail. This is note form. Okay, so first I will go on note list. So on note list, so this is a css. Do not worry about this. This is just a formatting, like kind of color we need for web page, spacing, and all these things. Okay, and now this is main part. So what we are doing, so for notes, in notes it is just displaying all the notes. So in note list html, so this is a for loop, and whatever the notes available, it is just displaying on this web page. So there are 10 notes, it will display on the 10 notes here. So and at the bottom it will show one more button to create a new notes. Okay, so this is a simple html. Now in note form, this note form is nothing but our form which we have in our forms.py. So it will just display that form to create a new note. Okay, and note detail, it will just give the note title and note content for the selected note. So this is a simple 3 files we are having. Now we have all the data available. Just try to run our application locally. So our application is ready. Let's see if anything is missing. No, I think now the next step is execute our application. I'll just execute run server command again. Okay, and it will run locally. So we have a notes application created. Let me go and click. So here it is home URL is not allowed, so we have to check on the /notes. Okay, so you can see the error, either it will work /admin and /notes. I'll just open the /notes, and you can see our notes application is working. So let's try to add new notes. So I'll just add new notes, and I will just give that. Okay, this is my SQL notes. Okay, and I'll just type something like abcxyz, and let's save it. Okay, so my SQL notes are saved. So I'll just create one Python notes, and I'll just add something. I'll just add say these few files. Okay, I'll just add these files, so just to see if it works. Okay, and just I'll try to save. So you can see now notes are saved, my SQL notes you can see. So a note details, you can see it is not working. So why it is not working? So let's troubleshoot that. So what it is saying, that template does not exist. It is trying to see in notes folder note underscore detail. So we have note underscore detail HTML. Let's see if we made any spelling mistake. Yeah, so we added note underscore details additional s. So let's change it to note details, because in our function, if I go to views, so it is returning note detail, not details. Okay, so let's reload this now, and you can see your SQL notes are visible. Go back, check your Python notes, and your Python notes is also visible. Go back. Now you can see your note application is working completely fine, and your data is saved within your SQLite database. Now application is working fine locally, so I can add few nodes. I'll just add suppose GCP nodes, and I will just add something like app engine. Then I will add just Cloud SQL. So whatever content you want to add, you'll just add and save just to add some more nodes. So you have nodes available and you can access any of these nodes. Okay, so this way your application is working fine. Now we have to deploy this application on a Google App Engine. So locally it is working fine, and we completed our first step, that we created Django nodes application and executed locally. So that is our first step that we successfully completed. Now we'll go to the second step, that we have to deploy it on Google Cloud and Google App Engine. Okay, so open the Google Cloud console here first. Okay, and I'll just go to, so if you are using App Engine for first time in your project, you have to create App Engine environment first. Okay, so just go to App Engine. I'll just show what existing services I am having here. So I am having few services here in my App Engine. If you do not have App Engine, it will ask you to create, and you have to create your App Engine environment. So my App Engine environment is already present, and there are multiple services already available. So I'll deploy a new service as a default service. Okay, so if you are not giving any service name, it will be default. But how you will deploy it to your App Engine? So for that you need app.yaml file. So I'll just stop it here, local application. Okay, and I will go back to my next step. Okay, so we tested it locally. What is the next step? Okay, so this is access application locally on /node. So till this part we work. Now we will go to the Django on our App Engine. So first these steps are there, we have to update the setting.py. So first we have to create Cloud SQL MySQL instance. So first I will go and create a Cloud SQL instance. Okay, but first thing, understand, when we executed locally we didn't create any MySQL instance, but why we are working on the Google App Engine. So I will explain you that also. So whenever we are executing locally, it is creating one SQLite database here. Okay, so this DB SQLite database is, and every times we are creating new entry in the nodes, it is updating this SQLite file. Okay, and all data is available in this SQLite file. But when we are executing on a Google App Engine file system is a read only, and it will not able to update this SQLite file whenever we create a new nodes, and it will throw an error. If you want, I will try to create without database first. So I will create first, I will skip the first and second step. I will throw an error purposefully. I will show you why we will not able to create with a SQLite database, and then I will go back to these steps. Okay, so I will do that. So what we'll do, we'll first create app.yaml. So now remember, I am skipping the database step and I will going with the same SQLite setup. Okay, so I will skip step number first and step number 2 for now. Step number 3 I will use. Okay, and now I need app.yaml file. So whenever we are deploying on Google App Engine, we need a app.yaml file. So let's create in the root directory app.yaml file, and here you simply use first line because I will use a default service. You can use the second service as well. Okay, but I will just, I don't want to use okay, I will do first thing, I will just use this note app, so it will deploy as a note app service just for testing. I will save this file. Okay, so what will happen when I'm going to App Engine, it will create new service as a note app. Okay, but I want to use it as a default service. I will show you both the way. So if I am giving the service name as a note app, it will create new service with a note app. If I am not giving this line, it will just create the default one. Okay, then second thing, what else we need? So we need to create main.py. So again, important things, many a times people will miss this part. So whenever we are deploying Django on App Engine, so there is no main.py in a root directory, and App Engine environment always looks for the main.py in root directory. So we have to create main.py, but what this main.py will contain. So how our current application is running, so it is running using, so this is the WSGI file, GI file, okay, and this is the application which is a get WSGI application. So we have to just point this in our main.py. So what we'll do in our main.py, so we'll just import nodes.project, okay, dot WSGI, okay, so, or from import application, and here I'll just mention app is equal to application. That's it, we don't have to do anything else, okay. So yeah, you can see it is already there, but instead of copying, I written it here, okay. Now how to deploy it on App Engine, let me just clear it. Now I assume you already have Cloud SDK installed in your system. So how you will understand Cloud SDK is installed, you can check the gcloud -- version. If it is giving Cloud SDK is installed, if it is not installed, you can go back, Cloud SDK install on Windows, okay, and you can install it from here. So go here and you can check how to install it on Windows. So on Windows you can execute on using this shell command, okay, or you can download this installer. So that is simple steps to install. I already have it installed, so I can execute my gcloud command from here. And also the second thing, I'm not using any service account to authenticate with my Google project. So why I'm not using, so you have to execute command gcloud auth application default login. So whenever you are executing this command, it will not ask for a service account, instead it will use your credential for your Python application. So I have owner permission, so I will use my credential so that my Django application can connect to App Engine, okay. So if you want to use a service account, you can use a service account, but this is the safest way because I am deploying it from local. So I'll just, you are now authenticated with the Google Cloud CLI. So these two steps you have to follow. Once you executed these two steps, now you can deploy directly from here. Now I can deploy gcloud app deploy. So once I do, it will deploy to my Google App Engine. So it will first show me the details. Now see, target service note app, and your service name will be this one. I'll just give permission yes, okay, and within a few seconds it will deploy a new service to App Engine, okay. It will deploy a new service to your App Engine. So currently there are only 3 services. Now we deploying new service, a note app one, note app service, okay. Let's wait for some time. It is updating the new service, and then we can reload our page. Okay, it is deployed now. So let's go and reload the service and check if we can see the note app service now. Okay, so we can see the note app service. Let's go on the service. Okay, now it is throwing an bad gateway, but it is not giving the exact error why we are getting this bad gateway. Definitely the bad gateway, it means our application is throwing error somewhere. So to check that error, go back to your App Engine and go back to logs. So in the logs we'll see exact error which is causing our service to crash, and definitely we missed something, but we can find it out from the logs and we'll resolve that error, okay. So do not worry, we will face such errors if we are doing any kind of deployment. Scroll down and see what is the exact error. So let's expand any of the error. Yes, it is module not found error, so that is very generic error. So it is saying no module found Django. So in locally we installed Django module, but it is not found on the App Engine. This is because we missed one step. So if I go to GitHub and let's see, Yeah, so we have to create requirement.txt file which we missed. So let's go and create requirement.txt file here. I'll just create requirements.txt file with a required module. So what we required Django and MySQL client. So let me just, and let's again deploy. Okay, so we have to deploy again. So this should resolve our error, that was the earlier error. So let's wait for this service to get deployed. Now application is deployed again, so let's check the second version. Now you can see the second version is deployed, so let's access it. Okay, and now we got a new error. So invalid https host header, you may need to add to the allowed host. So currently we do not have anything added manually in allowed host. So why this error, let me explain you. So go to your setting.py and here you can see the allowed host, it is completely empty. So you have to, if you are creating the web application which can be accessed from anyone on the internet, you have to add all in the allowed host. So star means all, anyone can access. So now just add star here and deploy our application again, and then let's see if we can access our application with these changes. I'll just make it confirmation. Okay, it's deployed. Let's go back and try to reload this. So this error is expected because we are not accessing the correct URL. We have to go to /notes, and now you can see we can access our application. So we successfully deployed on App Engine, but that is not the complete process. So we are missing something here. So what we are missing, now you can see these nodes are already we created in the locals, and these are inherited here because we are using the SQLite database. So we are using the same SQLite database. If I open the nodes, you will see the data as well. You can access the nodes as well. That is not an issue, but issue is when we are creating the new nodes. As I said, we have to use external database along with a Django on App Engine, else it will throw an error. So I will show you what is the issue here. So suppose I will create the new GCP App Engine, I will create a new node and it will throw an error saying it is a read only file system. I will just give something XYZ. Okay, and once I click on save, it will throw an error. You can see attempt to write read only database, because when we are using the App Engine we cannot use this SQLite on App Engine. So we have to connect to external database. Also it is not recommended when we are using it for production grade application to use the SQLite database. So for testing purpose it is fine, but to use it for our production grade application, so we have to use external database. So here we'll use a MySQL on a Google Cloud SQL. So let's go and create a Cloud SQL instance. So if you remember, we we purposefully skipped these first two steps just to understand why we have to use the database when we are using Google App Engine. Okay, so that I had to explain, and you can see the error now why we had to create external database, because it will not allow us to write to the database. Okay, so you can use the nodes, you can read the nodes, but you cannot create new nodes, you cannot write anything to the SQLite database. So that way our application won't be functional and it is kind of only read only. So we cannot create application in such a way. So we have to create a fully functional application. So I will create a MySQL database using a Cloud SQL. Okay, so I'll just create SQL instance here. Okay, I'll just choose MySQL, and you can keep eyes on the pricing. So I will create a very small instance. So currently it is $2.21 per hour. I will reduce that cost here by choosing the minimum instance. So I will just give no tab MySQL database name, password I will just ask to generate. Okay, so it will generate some random password. I will just copy it Okay, and let me save it somewhere. I'll just save it here. Okay, so I will choose enterprise and I will choose a sandbox. Now you can see the pricing is only $0.14 per hour, and I will just disable the deletion protection and create instance. So it will create a very small MySQL database for me, which I will use along with my Django application. So mean the time the database is getting created, we'll update the settings. So this is our second step. So just copy this. This is the format. We have to change the values. Okay, so I will just paste it here. Okay, and I will just comment out the SQLite setting. So now we'll use the MySQL. We will not use a SQL. So this is the format how we should add the connection setting. So this is correct. Here we have to update the name of our database. So if I go to database, I will go to connection and I will copy the name from here and I will paste it here. Okay, port is fine. User I will use root. Password, so best practice is to use a secret manager, but I am not making it complicated. I will just, this is for demo purpose, so I'm just using the plain text. But if you are using for your like office or permanent organization project, just make sure you use a secret manager to store your password. So I'm just using it as a plain text, but that is not recommended. Okay, and name, so I will create new database once our Cloud SQL instance is created. Okay, so it is being created for now. So once it is created, I will create one database for our application and let me save it. So before deploying it to the app engine, we will try first if our application connect to this database with this setting from local. Okay, so to execute to connect to the database Cloud SQL instance, you need a Cloud SQL auth proxy. So I'll just download Cloud SQL proxy. Okay, so I am using on Windows, so it is just showing, just right click and save link as. So this is how you can download Cloud SQL auth proxy. So I can save here. Okay, so directly you can see in Notepad your notes project, or you can save anywhere. Okay, so let's see if I have it here. I saved it here, so I can just run it. So why we have to execute? Because I want to connect from my local system, that is my local laptop, to the Cloud SQL now. Okay, so I am using the Cloud SQL auth proxy. How to connect? So now go back, connect using Cloud SQL auth proxy. So I downloaded the file, and this is the command to connect. I will just copy it. Let's see if it is created. Okay, it is still under completion. So meanwhile, just wait for it, then we can execute a Cloud SQL proxy. So we can also check the documentation, Django on app engine, and here they mentioned how to connect to the Cloud SQL from local. Yes, so here they mentioned download Cloud SQL proxy and then how to connect using Cloud SQL auth proxy. So this is the way to connect. Okay, so let's our database get started, then we can connect. Okay, our database is here. So let me go to the databases and I will create one new database for my Django application. So name I will just give notapp-db. Okay, I'll just copy it name, create database, and I'll update my settings as well. So what is my database name? notapp-db. So let's save it. Okay, so now we have to check if we can connect to this notapp-db database from my local Django application. So I am not using the SQLite now, I am using the MySQL instance. So before that, just to execute Cloud SQL proxy, so I will use the command. So this is the command, project region instance name, so that we can get from connections. I'll copy it. Okay, now it is running and open for new connection. Why we needed this? Because using now we can connect to Cloud SQL from my local Django. Now I have to execute my Django application, python manage.py run server. Okay, so now you can see you have 19 unapplied migration because it detected the new database now, and it might throw an error. Even if I click on it, it is throwing an error. Let's see if so. If I go on /notes, I suspect it will throw an error because it won't able to connect to database. So before that we have to see, you can see the error, it is not able to find notes table does not exist because our Cloud SQL does not have tables yet. So what we can do, let me just close it. So we will again create tables in Cloud SQL. So for that we can use the same command, python manage.py make migrations. Okay, so you can use this command from this. Okay, so they created Pulse application, we are creating the Notepad application, or I will add this command also in. So no changes detected because it is changes in our configuration file, not in a database. And if I do now python manage.py migrate, so it will create tables in our Cloud SQL. So we can check that as well. Go here and go to connections. Go back and open a Cloud Shell. So you connect to your MySQL using Cloud Shell and see if tables are there. Okay, so go back to here and you can see it created the tables now. So we created only database and now it is creating table within your MySQL database. But to connect from local, you should have your auth proxy running. Okay, then only it will connect from local. So if you are not aware what is Cloud SQL auth proxy, you can see my playlist on Cloud SQL. There I explain how to use Cloud SQL auth proxy, why we need a Cloud SQL auth proxy. So you will understand end-to-end flow there. Okay, so let's try to access the application now. I'll just go back. Oh, not here. We were running from local, so let's run again from local and let's see if we can access application now. Now you can see that error was gone. Earlier was like there was error. So that, yeah, so this you have 19 unapplied migration, that error is not there now, it is directly running. Let me access, go to slash notes. Okay, and now I can add new nodes. Before that, I want to show in a Cloud SQL, I want to connect to a database. Okay, so now you can connect to a database. It will ask for a password, so we have password noted down. Let me copy a password. It will ask us for password. So let's paste a password, enter. Okay, now I connected to database. So now use what, note app hyphen db. So we'll use that database change. Now let me execute show tables. Now you can see the note table is created. Now let me select star from notes underscore note. Currently there is no entry. Now let me add one entry. Okay, so I was running this locally, add a new entry, test note, and I'll just execute. This is my Cloud SQL. Let me save it. Okay, now this will create entry in a database which we created, MySQL database. Okay, so it created. Now let me show you. So earlier you can see here is empty set. I will execute the same command again, and you can see it created new note and it added here. Now you can see this is the table created from the models. Now whatever the entry we add, it will just add to the database, and whatever we open, it will just fetch from the database. Now it is taking time because we are connecting from local to the Cloud SQL instance on the Google Cloud. Okay, so now you understood why we need to use a Cloud SQL along with the App Engine, because in App Engine the DB SQLite is a read only and not allowed to write into that database from the App Engine. Now everything is working fine. Now what we'll do, we will now deploy the same application to the App Engine. So let's close it, and I will deploy gcloud app deploy. Okay, and then we'll test it on App Engine. Okay, it deployed app here. So let's check to the App Engine. Let's reload and check the new version, and there we should be able to add the notes from the App Engine service as well. We can see we got an error that can't connect to local MySQL server through socket. Okay, and this is our connection name. So sometimes you will get this error with default service or any one of the service, or with all the service. So this is because of the permissions with the default service account. So if I go to services and then settings, you will see this is the default service account used by your App Engine. So you have to give permissions to connect to your Cloud SQL instance to this service account. So I will go here, and what I will do, I will just give permissions. I will go to IAM here. I will go to IAM, and here I will click on the service account. So here you have to select on Google managed role grants. Okay, so this is the checkbox you have to select, and then click on, just paste your default service account. Now you can see it is having only one permission, compute instance Now here we should be seeing only one test node which we created just now. Okay, so this is a test node, you can see it. Now there was no issue while reading, but now let's see if we can add the nodes now, because if we are using the DB SQLite earlier, we will not able to add it. We could not add any new nodes, we could not write to the database. So I will just add test2 and I will just write note from app engine to MySQL. I'll just giving something. Okay, and now you can see it's saved. Let's validate in a database as well. So just execute select statement again, and you can see the test2 is also created. So you can write any amount of nodes now, like app engine, and I will just write 1 2 3 something, any kind of node you can add now, and it will create a node for you. So now it is working completely fine, and we deployed application on app engine. Now every time when we are accessing the service, so here it is throwing an error that we have to reach out to /node. So we can change that. We can access our application on the root URL itself. So how we can change that? So we can change in urls.py. okay, so let me go to the urls.py. so in our urls.py, here if we are on a root path, it is going to the node list, but it always follow the your project settings. So in our project settings, so we have /nodes which included a nodes URL. So instead of /nodes, what I will do, I will just keep it blank. Okay, I will save it, and first I will test it locally. If it is working fine locally, then we'll deploy it to the app engine. So I'll just execute it. And it should open on our root URL. Now you could see I didn't needed to add a /node, and it's opened on the root URL. So we'll update that to our app engine as well. So every time we don't need to add /nodes to the our URL. Okay, it's deployed on app engine as well. So before that, I want to change one thing. So now instead of no type service, I want to default it as a default service. So that is my default app engine service. So if I go to app engine, you can see currently I'm accessing it on a no type service, but I want to access it on a default service. So I will just comment it out. So if we are not giving any service name, it will deploy on a default service. So I'll just execute gcloud app deploy, and with our two changes, one is default service name and another is on a root URL, we should be able to access our application. So we don't need to give /nodes there. Okay, so it is being deploying. So once it is deployed, we'll do one more thing. So we'll access it on a domain name. So how we can access it on a domain node? So suppose currently we are accessing it on a app engine URL. So let's say this is our URL currently we are accessing. Okay, so this is app engine URL. So currently we are accessing on this URL. Later we'll access it on nodes.techtapture.com. so we'll add a custom domain name, so anyone on the internet can access our application on a custom domain. So how to add that, I will tell you in this video. Once it is deployed, I will explain you. Okay, so currently the service is being deployed. So once it is deployed, we'll map it to our custom domain. Okay, so it is deployed. Let's validate if we can access on default service now. So let's reload it. Earlier there was 2 instances of the default service, 2 versions, so third would be there now. So default. Okay, we have 4th version. Fine, I deployed one more earlier. Okay, now we can access it on the root URL. We don't need to add /. Okay, so let's open a nodes, and we can see any of our nodes, and we can add. Now instead of this complicated URL, I want to map it to the domain. My domain, I want to map it to notes.techtrapture.com. So for that, go to the settings, and here is a custom domain, and add a custom domain. So you already have domain, you can add. If you don't have, you can register a new domain. So I already have one domain, so you can purchase your domain any of the websites. So purchase domain, so you can purchase it on like GoDaddy, Hostinger, any of these website you can purchase your domain. So I already purchased my domain techtrapture.com, so I will use that. So I will just click on add custom domain. So techtrapture.com, it already detected because I already using my Google Cloud organization here on techtrapture.com. Okay, so that is why it already detected this techtrapture.com, but I won't be using it on my root site, so I will create a subdomain. So I will just create notes.techtrapture.com. okay, and save mapping. It will provide us some DNS record which we have to update in our DNS setting. Now these steps are optional for you. If you want to add domain, you can add, or this video is only for deploying Django application on App Engine, but that is something additional I am doing. In case you have to do, how you can do that. Okay, so once I continue, it will provide me this DNS record which I have to add in my domain DNS. So now if you are using the domain from one of the domain name provider, you can add that domain name provider settings. So suppose if you are using the Google domains, so suppose I will show you. So Google domain is now migrated to another domains. Okay, so if it is like migrated to Squarespace, so if you are using Google domain, so you have option, you had option earlier to add your DNS settings, but now it is migrated to Squarespace. So I am managing my DNS setting in a Google Cloud itself. So let me go to the Google Cloud DNS, and let me go to the DNS. Okay, Cloud DNS. So these entry, we have to create these records in our DNS settings. So I have this techtrapture.com I am managing here. So inside that I already created a public DNS zone with a domain techtrapture.com. Now I have to create a records within itself. So I have to create a records for notes.techtrapture.com, and I have to add these entries. So like 32.21, 34.21. So these 4 records first I will add as a name records or a records. So this is a records I will add. Okay, so this is the first. So I added this record. So let me add other IP also in this same records. So I'll just add the items. So instead of 34, now it is having instead of 32, it is having 34.21. then it is having 36.21, and last it is having 38.21. so these are the 4 records we have to add. So let's save it. Okay, so what else we need to do? We need to add these records as well, but what I will do, I am using IPv4, so I will skip these records. Okay, so let's check if we can access on notes.techtrapture.com. so sometimes it will take till 24 hours to propagate your changes, and sometimes it is very quick. Okay, so let's see. Now you can see we are accessing it on our notes.techtrapture.com, but it is not secure because there is no SSL as of now. So what you can do, you can just click on done, and it will create SSL certificate as well for you. Okay, but for now you can see you mapped your application to the custom domain, and it is accessible on notes.techtrapture.com. so if I put somewhere http colon. So anyone on the internet can access it, can add the note, it can read the note. So all the operation we can do using the custom domain. So hope you understood how we added custom domains to our app engine. So in this way we created our Django application in Python. We tested it locally, then we connected it to the Cloud SQL instance of MySQL, and then we deployed on app engine, and at the end we created and we mapped a custom domain name to our application. So hope you enjoyed this video. So try to replicate this complete project in your environment and you will learn a lot of things from this video. So thank you for watching this video till the end, and we'll see you in the next video.